Hey there, it's Sam from ERIK'S, and today I'll be showing you the basics for setting up your suspension. We'll be covering setting initial sag, rebound damping, and compression damping, as well as giving you tips on how to dial in these settings after a couple rides.
Eric the Bike Man!
Having properly set up suspension will set you up for the best experience on the trail. Take the time to do it properly and you won't regret it. If you've never done it before, setting up suspension can seem like a daunting task, but we'll give you the steps and tools to get you on your way. Before we begin, the one thing you'll need is a shock pump. If you don't have one, you can pick one up at shoperiks.com or your local bike shop. Now that you have that, we should be all set. Let's start with the fork. Forks from some brands like Fox and RockShox will have a chart right on the fork leg that will give you a great place to start for air pressure. Simply take your weight with all your riding gear on, find the corresponding air pressure on the chart, and use your shock pump to set the pressure to that value. Before adding or removing air from the fork, you'll want to make sure your compression and rebound adjustments are all the way open or set to their fastest setting and cycle the suspension a few times. This allows the pressure to equalize inside the chambers of the fork, avoiding problems down the line. If your fork doesn't have this chart, check out the manufacturer's documentation as they should have a similar pressure recommendation. Next, we'll be setting sag. Sag is the amount your suspension compresses while sitting stationary on the bike. This next part is easier if you have a friend to help you out, but you can also use a wall to stabilize yourself. First, with the suspension fully extended, reset the travel indicator. With a friend holding up the bike, get onto the bike as gently as possible. Cycle the suspension a few times, set the travel indicator, and then get off as gently as possible. The idea is to compress the suspension under your own weight without pushing it any further. Now you can measure the amount the suspension compressed to figure out the percentage of your travel that was used. This is your sag value. Most manufacturers recommend a sag value between 20 and 30%. Closer to 20 for shorter travel forks and closer to 30 for longer travel. If your sag value is less than 20%, release a few PSI from the fork and try again. If it's above 30%, add some air and try again. Keep adjusting until you're within that range and your sag is set. After sag, we'll look at setting rebound and compression damping. The rebound adjustment changes how quickly the suspension will return to full extension after being compressed, and compression adjustment changes how much force is needed and how quickly the fork will move into its travel. Rebound too quick and your bike will feel like a jackhammer on the trail. Too slow and you won't be getting all or any benefits of the suspension. If your compression is too firm, it will again be a bumpy ride. Too soft and you'll be bottoming out all the time. Which adjustments you have will vary depending on your exact fork model. The fork we'll be looking at today has one rebound and one compression adjustment. Some high-end suspension can have low and high speed adjustments for both, but we're going to keep it simple today. Similar to the chart on the leg, Fox, RockShox, and some bike manufacturers, like Specialized, have more in-depth tuning guides that will help you set up other adjustments like compression and rebound damping. We'll drop links to where to find these in the description. If your suspension isn't one of these brands, check out your manufacturer's website and documentation for similar guides. The rebound adjustment knob is generally on the bottom of the drive side of the fork. It's usually colored red. For rebound, you want to set it as fast as possible without having the front wheel jump off the ground after compressing, then releasing the fork quickly with your body weight. After this, you can try moving the rebound adjustment by a click or two after a ride on the trail. The compression adjustment knob is generally on the top of the drive side of the fork, and it's usually colored blue. This adjustment usually has 2 or 3 positions it can be set in. Closed and open on the extremes, sometimes with a middle setting. You want to keep this open on the trail and only move it towards closed when riding on flat ground or climbing. Again, you can play around with this as you ride a few times to dial in the feel for yourself. These settings also depend on the type of terrain you're riding, so if you hit up a new trail, don't be afraid to make some adjustments to get back to your ideal feel. Now your air-sprung fork is all set up. Remember, you can always change these settings later on and tune them to get your perfect ride. If you have a full suspension bike, we're going to talk about shocks next. Many of the same principles from setting up the fork apply to the shock. When setting sag for a shock, the main difference is you should set the starting pressure in the shock, in PSI, equal to your riding weight with your riding gear on, in pounds. After that, follow the procedure from before. Gently get on the bike, cycle the shock a few times, Set the travel indicator, measure sag, and adjust from there. Remember to keep your compression and rebound adjusters open when cycling the shock to equalize the pressure internally. After you get your sag set up, it's time to set your rebound damping. Again, the best place to start is the manufacturer's tuning guide, if they have one. If you don't have a guide to follow, here's a good place to start. The rebound adjustment knob, similar to a fork, will usually be red. You want to start with the rebound damping all the way slow or in the most closed position, and the compression damping all the way open. Alternatively, if the bike manufacturer has set up a calculator or chart, you can set your initial rebound and compression damping based on that. Then, take it for a spin on the trail and off a small drop if that's your style, and feel how the shock rebounds. Keep opening the rebound adjustment by a couple clicks until you feel like the shock is rebounding too quickly, and then back it up by 2 clicks. You can continue to adjust it up and down a click at a time until you get the exact feel you want. Moving on to compression. This is usually a blue lever that will have 2 or 3 different positions. This shock has a 2-position lever with the settings open and closed. When to use each of these is dependent on where you're riding. You'll generally want to leave it open though, unless you're doing a lot of climbing or putting down a lot of power through the pedals. And boom, we're done. This initial setup will get you in a good place to get the most benefit out of your suspension. Being mindful on the trail and noticing how your bike is handling will allow you to tune the suspension to the terrain and your liking. As you can tell, a lot of this is based on feel and what you like, but with this video you should be in a good spot to start to know what to look and feel for to make adjustments after you get some laps done. Thanks for watching, and if you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up. Have any setup tips or want to see how to set up coil suspension? Leave it down below in the comments. And if you'd like to see more from us, be sure to subscribe and consider checking out our other videos. See ya!